So the third module that you're showing here we're showing it in NAMM, but this is the first time for a European audience to see it. This is the Trident.
Yes, the Trident's a triple oscillator with a new feature in it I call Zing modulation that is really a lot of fun. It is actually shipping right now.
Excellent. And what sort of price points are we talking about?
So Trident is a little expensive. It's an analog module. It is stuffed full of circuitry. It is $599. The first module we introduced this year was Trident. It is a triple oscillator. And if you want to use it just as 3 separate oscillators, you can. You just turn off the sync and track buttons and turn down the Zing modulation, and they are now completely independent oscillators. They're Dave Rossum oscillators, so they're very accurate and very temperature stable. The top one, which we call the carrier oscillator, has 3 independent waveforms available simultaneously. We've got a triangle wave, we see up here on the scope, a sawtooth wave, and then a variable width pulse wave. Where's the pulse width? There we go. And when used alone, you can use all 3 of those waveforms at the same time. The modulation here is primarily frequency and pulse width. If we move down to the 2 modulation oscillators, they're pretty much identical, and they have a little bit of a different architecture. The output waveform is selectable. Let me tweak it over here so it's a little more recognizable. So we have a triangle wave, and that triangle wave has a variable symmetry. So you can go from sawtooth to triangle back to saw. Let's actually listen to that one. That nice modulation of harmonics there. And then we can select a sawtooth waveform, which looks like a sawtooth with symmetry in the center, but you tweak the symmetry control and we put a little kink in the middle of the sawtooth. Fairly interesting but very subtle timbral variation. That'll really come out in the Zing modulation. And then of course we also have the variable width pulse available over here as well. By the way, the pulse width can always be taken down to 0% or 100%, and that allows you to use the fixed CV source if you're not using it for something else. Just a little tiny feature in there. So the modulation oscillators have the variable symmetry, and they are used with this Zing modulation to the carrier, and that's the really interesting thing about Trident. Turn down our waveform there. Let's go back up and start playing with Zing modulation. So we've got a triangle wave up here, and what Zing modulation does, it's akin to ring modulation where we multiply 2 waveforms together. But the problem with ring modulation is, number one, it's just a fixed effect. It isn't very variable. And it also, when you do anything outrageous with it, it makes some in difference frequencies which are very aharmonic. So while it's pretty wild, it's also kind of science fiction sound, or sounds like tuning an AM radio or something like this. When we instead synchronize the oscillators, that tames those harmonics, so they're forced to be synchronous with the carrier oscillator, and instead of getting wild aharmonic stuff, everything's harmonic, but you're getting instead a wild evolution of the harmonics, and it looks and sounds really neat. So let's start with our triangle wave down here. I'll choose a triangle wave for the modulation, and when you multiply 2 lines together, you get a quadratic curve. So we'll see the waveform begin to curve as I turn this up over here. And we can begin to hear the timbral modulation happening in there. But now everything I do to the mod oscillator has really interesting effects on the timbre of the carrier wave up here. If I change the symmetry of that triangle wave, nice fun effects there. And I even can change the phase of the 2 oscillators, the phase synchronization. That's only on the second modulation oscillator, but that also has really interesting effects on the timbre. And we can bring in the second modulation oscillator up here and get twice the fun. You can get very vocal format type of effects using both modulation oscillators. So Zing modulation, it's very controllable. You can go from very subtle stuff to really outrageous things. And if you desynchronize the oscillators, you then get more ring modulation type of stuff. But since they track so well, you can zero in on nice little sweet spots there. So that's Trident. It's shipping now, and people are already having a lot of fun with it.